1976. And I was blessed to arrive in Nepal. It was such a phenomenal country when we first arrived. I still remember coming down in the airplane and on the RNAC flight, coming down from New Delhi, and we passed under the clouds. It was July, so it was the monsoon, and we came into the most gorgeous green of the valley that I'd ever seen in my life, and we saw thatched roofs and bulls pulling plows and things of that sort. It was magical. My whole 2 years in Nepal was magical, and I absolutely fell in love with the country. I had the opportunity to be an engineer when I was there. I was a Kamipani Yojana volunteer. I worked with the Sani Vikas Vibhag, which is a local development department, and I worked out in the district, rather remote district of Bajra, out in the far western part of the country. I was there for a year and a half. I finished up the project I was on, which was drinking water systems, gravity flow drinking water systems, bringing water down from springs up in the hills through a series of pipes all the way down to the villages. And it was about 2 miles of digging in the ground and so on. I didn't do that just by myself, of course, but worked a lot with the local villagers during that time and lived with them during that time. And it was absolutely spectacular. I had a chance then to go to a project in Baghlan as well. Yes, not in Baghlan. Yes, it was in Baghlan, Baghlan district, and I had a wonderful time there as well. During that time, right at the end of my tour, I met my wife, who was also a better volunteer than I was, Nancy Long. She was a better volunteer. She was a math science teacher in, what was the district, Nancy? In Sangha. And we ended up traveling home together from Nepal. I ended up we married, started a family, and 5-6 years later, I ended up joining the Foreign Service, the Diplomatic Corps for the US government. And after that was 1984, had one tour in Sicily, and then my second tour was back to Kathmandu, and it was spectacular. I was the visa officer and also the American Citizen Services officer, and that was a busier job than the visa work at that time. Now the visa work in Nepal, from what I understand, has grown dramatically, and it is a busy shop. Then I was the sole, at that time, when I first got to Nepal, I was the only consular officer there. And we had a staff of 3. But within a short period of time, we grew. It was an absolutely wonderful opportunity to see Kathmandu 10 years later. I see the country 10 years later. I had lots of adventures while I was there, dealing with Americans who were in various kinds of trouble. That was actually the bigger part of the job. And since then, after my 2 years there in the mid-'80s, I went on. So all I can say is one of the nice things has been that we made such close friends among the volunteers. The volunteers were a very close-knit group. And over the years, over the last, what has it been now, 30, 40 years, we have had reunions of our group. 2 of our groups, my wife's group and my group together were there at the same time. And so we have had the opportunity to have reunions every 3 or 4 years in various parts of the U.S. And it's absolutely wonderful to make contact with our friends from there. So I will end with that. My wife has given me the high sign, I think. No, I'll blame it on my wife, but I know I've taken up too much time. I'm very happy to be here. Also a member of Friends of Nepal. And I had an opportunity to go back there in 2011 when I retired. And it was a fabulous trip where I had an opportunity to travel. Unfortunately, I didn't go back to my village. I knew Bajra was a little bit too far away for what I wanted to do, or at least I thought it was at the time. A good friend of mine who I served with in Bajra, a guy who had built, there were 3 of us in the valley of the Buriganga River Valley in Bajra. We were each about a day's hike from each other. And they built a bridge. He's back there now as we speak. and he's visiting with the people in Batra, and he's having an absolutely fabulous time for what I hear. But at any rate, I will end there, and thank you all very much. It's a pleasure to chat with you all and meet you all, and that's it for me. Namaste.